And welcome to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, March 4th. We're going to call ourselves to order here at 1 p.m. The first item on our agenda is our national anthem. So I'll get you to stand, please, face the flag, and remove your headdress if you have it on. Okay, next is our land acknowledgement. Councillor Trim will do the land acknowledgement today.
Thank you. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of the Township of Whitewater Region and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this land for thousands of years.
Excellent, thank you. And I should have noted it when I called ourselves to order, but we do have quorum today with 2 members of council missing, but we still have quorum. Excellent. The next item is the adoption of our agenda today. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the March 4th, 2026 agenda. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor and Councillor White. Any changes that anyone would like to propose on the agenda? Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I would like to move item number 9.5 and 9.6 up so that our guests do not have to remain.
So just putting them ahead of 9.1 on the agenda?
I'm sorry, yes, yeah, moving it up to 9.1. That's Perfect. Item number 9.5 and 9.6.
Perfect. Should I need a resolution specifically for the amendment? Yeah. Perfect. Do I have a seconder for that proposed amendment? Yeah, Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Moore. Any discussion from members of council? So we're just shifting items 9.5, 9.6, the 2 zoning amendment applications, up ahead of 9.1. Good. I will call for the vote. All those in favor? And the amendment is carried. We'll go back to the original recommendation. Is there any other amendments or changes that anyone would like to propose to the agenda today? Good, I see none. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried as amended. Perfect. Next item is the adoption of some previous minutes from February 18th. The recommendation is the Council of Township of Whitewater Region approve the February 18th, 2026 minutes. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Trim, Councillor Moore. Any errors or omissions noted in these minutes? Good. And I'll note these are only the regular session, not the closed session. Closed session will follow at a subsequent meeting. Good. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. And just to note, we also have a committee and boards minutes that are enclosed in here for information for ours as well as the public's. These are from Muskrat Watershed Council at their February 19th meeting. And I'll just get our council rep if there's anything she wants to speak to that's in those minutes.
Nothing to add this time.
Thanks, Councillor White. Good. We go on to the next item on the agenda, which is 5, which is disclosures of interest. Is there any member of council that needs to disclose with respect to anything on the agenda today? Good. I see none. Next item is presentations. We have no presentations today. The clerk is gracefully excluded presentations from our agenda today. Next item is the mayor's address, and I have something prepared, and we'll just go through it now. Council, on behalf of council, I've attended 15 meetings and events this past 2 weeks. Included is a new committee that I was asked to participate in. The Ministry of Natural Resources Forest Sector Strategy Committee. So this is a provincial committee that is examining provincial policy with respect to the forest sector, and they've asked me to be the elected official representing the Eastern Ontario input into this new strategy. And I have confirmed funding, which is probably what you're most interested in. The funding for me to attend will be covered by county and not Whitewater Region. So at this time, I can forecast no conflicts with my mayoral responsibilities, but I just wanted to make sure that you were tracking that new requirement for me. The second item is the City of Pembroke Sportsplex Joint Committee has also asked if I would participate as a non-voting person, resource to provide input into their discussions. And as per the resolution that we had on September 4th, 2024, our Whitewater Region position hasn't changed with respect to the Sportsplex, but this participation would support the collaborative effort that we spoke to in that resolution. If there is a concern from a member of council, please let me know, or CAO. Two updates. The first one is just on our resolution at the last council meeting where we asked if the County of Renfrew would take the lead on marketing the former Teminco mine site, as well as taking the lead on the application to acquire 90 acres to create a Class 3 industrial park in the same location. It was presented at the Development Committee, Development and Planning Committee, and it was accepted by all members. County is currently attending the PDAC conference, which is Prospectors and Development Association Conference. It's in Toronto. 2,000 vendors, 20,000 people participating, all to do with critical minerals in the province of Ontario internationally. So we've already made numerous contacts with international industry leaders with respect to the mineral deposit at the former Teminco mine. So it's actually getting movement. So very, very happy to be able to report that back. There has some other information that's been shared, but I'm going to wait for it to come out at council, at county council first, and then we'll be able to share it publicly. Good. You'll also notice that the provincial government has made a formal announcement on the extension of Highway 17 from Arnprior to Bruce Street, Renfrew, this past Friday. The Ministry of Transportation Parliamentary Assistant Brise confirmed that the project is a go, so it's green lit. Originally the plan had been to do the 22 plus kilometers as one single contract. They have changed that approach, and it is being divided up into 5 different segments and a different RFP for each segment. What this will allow is smaller companies, preferably local companies, will be able to make bids against each segment, or the segments that they're interested in. Also to note is they're not planning to do the segments sequentially. So things like the bridge, the complex bridge that's going to have to go in at Renfrew will take forever, but they'll do whatever segments they can in whatever order they decide once the RFPs are received. So it is as green as it can go from the provincial government. They also confirmed that it is budgeted for and will remain funds committed for the project. But the timelines, they won't be able to confirm any of those until the proposals are submitted and proponents are specifically selected. I can't imagine this kind of project moving extremely quickly, but we know that it's moving, so you can share that with anyone that you want to share it with. Good, and last, I just wanted to highlight that this Friday, March 6th, is Employee Appreciation Day. And although council, we only have one employee, our CAO. We want to take a moment just to acknowledge that all the things that he does for us, and we talked already about the former Teminco mine site and all the work that CAO and staff have done to support that initiative. We also want to make sure that we recognize the many other employees that the Corporation of Township Whitewater Region employs, including our volunteer firefighters who serve our community in so many different ways. So thank you in advance of Friday. I also want to highlight that the CAO has got an employee recognition form on our website. It's on the front page of our website in the right-hand banner, where anyone can use that available PDF form to recognize the performance of a township employee. So if you, or anybody that's watching us, if you like something that someone has done, this is an avenue for you to take a moment to recognize that employee and share it with others. Good, and just before I conclude, Steve, anything you want to add on that last part? No, good, excellent. And that concludes my address. Is there any questions or comments from council? Yeah, Councillor Trim.
Yes, just one, Mr. Mayor. With respect to the Taminco topic that you referenced, the minister had 3 asks, and attending the PETA conference was one of those, was the only ask that hadn't been completed up until that time, and now that the county reps are attending, all has been satisfied. Thank you.
PDAC conference. But the Minister Lecce and our MPP met with county staff there about the project. So it was interesting to see a full circle follow-up on the project. Good, Councillor Moore?
Just one other thing on that. Is there other property in the county that is being looked at for minerals, or is it just our property?
There are 3 sites that are being discussed. A graphite mine, 2 graphite mines within the county, plus our dolomite mine. So all 3 of them, and I did see that they have met with the graphite mine owner. That's the one up in Head Clara Mariah. They met with them this week as well. So it's interesting to see economic development focusing on these critical minerals. So positive. Good. Any other questions or comments? Awesome. We'll keep going. Next item on the agenda is number 8, public comments, and I'll just ask the clerk if there's any public comments. None received on our agenda items for today, so we'll move on to item number 9, which is reports. And as we have amended the agenda already, we are going to skip forward to item 9.5, which is a zoning bylaw amendment. The recommendation before us, and sorry, I'll just highlight 9.6 and 9.5. These are the 2 zoning bylaw amendments that we heard public comments for at our last council meeting. So this is now the opportunity for us to formally receive them as council. First one is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve an amendment to the Comprehensive Zoning Bylaw, number 2401-1655, for the property known as Concession 5, East Muskrat Lake, North Part Lot 9, 1915 Beachburg Road, from the Residential 1, R1 zoning, to Residential 1 exception, R1-E36 zoning. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Trim, seconded by Councillor Moore. And I'm going to ask the planner just to do an overview, especially with the context of the public comment that we received at the last meeting. So over to you, planner, please.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I won't rehash the whole report again because it's largely remained the same. I'll note that the PPS promotes healthy, viable, and rural areas that build on existing character. The village community designation within the official plan supports commercial uses. What I will emphasize in this case is that we have revised the zoning being requested. At the previous meeting, there were concerns about alternate commercial uses on the property. In addition, with conversations with the applicant, they expressed a desire to potentially revert back to residential in the future. As a result of these discussions, we decided to rezone it to a residential 1 exception zoning, with the exception to allow the office use of the property subject to site plan approval. This makes it more restrictive than the general commercial zoning, limiting the property to only that office space use. It also allows the applicant the flexibility to convert it back to residential in the future, subject to change of use permit with the building department. And it addresses the concerns of additional commercial uses on the property beyond the proposed office space use by the applicants at this time. Additionally, we received comments regarding the access on the back of the lot. The applicant has provided a site plan which has referenced this access as used for light vehicular traffic and foot traffic. The site plan wasn't in time to go on the report, but it was circulated to council members, I believe, 2 days ago. We also reached out to the County of Renfrew for their comments on the use of that access to Beachburg Road, and they had no concerns and did not pose any objections to the use. At this time, based off the information provided in the previous report and the updates to this report, planning is recommending approval of the zoning bylaw amendment.
Excellent, thank you, planner. I just, we received that site plan approval. Is it possible to put it up and then we can add it secretarially to the public record? Good, and I just want to confirm council did receive that. Excellent, good. And with that, we will open it up to questions from council. Any questions or comments? And I'll go to the mover first, Councillor Trim.
Yes, the concerns that were raised at the last council meeting have been adequately addressed. And again, the Main Street of Beachburg is a nice mix of residential and commercial storefront properties and offices. And so this is fits right in with the rest of the street. So I'm certainly in favor of this bylaw amendment.
Seconder, Councillor Moore.
My only concern from last meeting was answered, and I'm quite happy with the presentation, and I'm going to vote in favor.
And the last two are members of council. Any comments or questions that you'd like to share?
I'm good.
No, that's good. I just want to thank the planner. The public input has been well received, documented, and addressed, so thank you for doing that. Good. If there's no other comments, questions, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it is carried unanimously. Excellent. Next, as per our amendment to the agenda, we now hear item 9.6, which is a zoning bylaw amendment as well. The recommendation is that Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve an amendment to the comprehensive zoning bylaw number 2401-1655 for the property known as Plan 6, Block D, lots 24, 25, and 26, which is 32 Hume Street, from residential 1, R1 zoning, to the residential 3, R3 zoning. A mover and a seconder, please. Go back, Councillor Trim and Councillor White. And again, I'll throw it back to the planner if you can please speak to the public comments that were received on this.
So through you, Mayor Nicholson, so I won't rehash the entire report again, but I will highlight some additional sections of the PPS and official plan that speak to residential intensification, and then speak to some of the concerns brought forth in the public comments as well. So additionally, in addition to PPS section 2.2, which covers planning authorities providing an appropriate range and mix of housing options, it further expands on that by establishing that areas should establish and implement minimum targets for the provision of housing that is affordable to low and moderate income households, and coordinating land use planning and planning for housing with service managers to address the full need of housing options. It also speaks to permitting and facilitating all housing options required to meet social, health, economic, and well-being requirements of current and future residents, including additional needs housing and needs arising from demographic changes and employment opportunities, and all types of residential intensification, including development and redevelopment of underutilized commercial and institutional sites for residential use, development and introduction of new housing options within previously developed areas, and redevelopment which results in a net increase in residential units, promoting densities for new housing which efficiently use land resources, infrastructure, and public service facilities. Subsection B and C specifically are relevant to this development, which was a focus on residential intensification, development, and introduction of new housing options in previously developed areas, and promoting density for new housing which efficiently make use of land. Additionally, County of Renfrew lists the objectives of the village community designation, which is in its entirety to maintain the function of the villages as settlement areas, providing limited services and facilities and offering an alternative living area, to reserve lands for residential, commercial, and institutional development in order to support the needs of residents and promote an orderly form of economic growth, to provide for a variety of types and costs of living with consideration for the traditional lifestyle of local residents, and to ensure that new development is appropriate in terms of compatibility and the site servicing capabilities. And with that, I think that's majority of the new information I wanted to cover in terms of addressing resident concerns. So the primary two concerns we noted within the emails were parking and traffic issues on Hume Street and concerns about lot grading, drainage, and site suitability for the services proposed. For the site suitability, I'll reiterate, they have completed a hydrogeological study. It is found that the site is capable of supporting this type of development. I know there was some confusion. There was a previous one done in 2021 relating to 2 triplex dwellings. There's been one updated in 2023 to speak to the residential 6-unit apartment, which is the one that we are using in this application. And it's found that the site is able to support the appropriate septic services for that type of development with a tertiary system, which will be required through site plan control and development agreements on the property. In terms of the lot grading and drainage, the applicant has provided an updated site plan with lot grading and drainage featured. It was attached to the report, and the township is satisfied with what they have proposed. Lot grading and drainage will also be enforced through development agreement and site plan control. With respect to the traffic and parking, the applicant has exceeded the required parking for the proposed development. I believe on the site plan they have provided 10 or 12 spaces when the requirement is 1.25 spaces per unit for an apartment dwelling, which in this case would be 7.5. So they have provided adequate, above adequate parking for the development. It's also noted the township does not have street parking bylaws at this time, so people may park on the street, but we don't have practices in place to control that, and with the sufficient parking, we believe that those concerns can be resolved. Based off the updated information provided by the applicant and the provincial planning statement, official plan, and zoning bylaw policies, planning is recommending approval of the zoning bylaw amendment at this time.
Perfect. Thank you, planner. I'm just one item I remember from the public meeting before I open it up for questions. It's just the setback. I noticed that the new diagram that's been provided here, can you speak to the setback?
Yes, so the previous diagram had a setback of 10 feet from the neighboring property, which the property owner was concerned about. It was noted that that setback didn't meet the provisions of the R3 zoning, which required a 6-meter, roughly 20-foot setback. They have updated on the site plan, and the setback is now in conformity with the zoning bylaw.
Perfect, thank you. And with that, I'll move to the mover, Councillor Trim.
Yes, there were certain questions, and that's quite fair, and they've been addressed as far as I can see. The other thing I note about the proposed building, there are no windows on the end facing the neighbor, and there's 20 feet now difference. So I mean, I think that's going to be quite a beautiful and acceptable addition to the community of Beachburg. So certainly going to be in favor. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Seconder was Councillor White.
Yes, the tertiary system that we talk about. Can you explain that, and who will be responsible for the maintenance of it?
So I know roughly, but I might turn it over to the CAO to speak more on it, but I believe it's known as an EcoFlow system. I believe as part of the installation process, the owner or the installer is required to sign a contract with the company that outlines annual maintenance and monitoring requirements. That's kind of my rough understanding, but I'll turn it over to our CAO, who I believe knows more on this than I do.
Yeah, thanks so much. I think the purpose of these tertiary systems is to reduce some of the nutrients leaving the system. Nutrients could be phosphorus, could be any like other types of nutrients as well. In this case, it puts in position some filters, certain types of filters. I mean, I don't have the details of that, but it's a filter type system where it reduces, in this case, the nitrate. It could reduce other nutrients as well. The filter is important because the filter has to be maintained. It has to be replaced at times. Based on my knowledge, together with our conversation with our CBO, is as our planner noted, is it's common practice that there's an agreement signed between the owner and the supplier manufacturer, and with that, there's a requirement for an annual inspection because they want these systems to continue to run at the level that they do. And we often in our office get these annual reports received, and we kind of review them, make sure they seem to comply. And where they don't, then we try to investigate some more. So that's kind of the process that exists. Through the development agreement or the site plan agreement, we could require that annual inspection. But I would leave it, we could converse back with our CBO to understand what he thinks is the best process to ensure that the system is maintained. But that's kind of how it functions. A filter needs to be maintained to reduce the nutrients.
Councillor White?
So if it's the responsibility of the owner supplier to do the maintenance or to keep track of it, in conversations with another person, tertiaries are becoming more and more common. So is there another level of ensuring that this is done?
Yeah, so I think it would, like, there are some municipalities who are implementing programs, like a program around tertiary systems that would require owners who are putting these in to submit these annual reports, these inspection reports. I don't think that the township does the inspection. I think you hire a third party to do the inspection. But these programs we would have a registry of all the properties that have them. We would send annual letters in the spring, so you need to inspect it by a certain date. Like, we could implement a program. There's resources needed to do so. Based on the limited number of these systems in our community, I don't think now is the time, but maybe something to look at in the future if they become prevalent, more and more prevalent in our community. Thanks.
Else, Councillor White? Yep.
The parking on the street. Now, one of the concerns was that the street is not regulation width. So can anybody comment on that, whether or not it's regulation width now?
Planner, do you want to comment? You want to give it to the CAO?
I will pass that to the CAO.
I can't speak to the current width, the width of the road and whether or not it meets the, our sort of requirements for a municipal road. I know that Hume is noted as a future project. I know our manager, director, has been noting this road as a road that needs to be redone. But I don't have unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you. I could investigate that to better understand the width of the road and what limitations that might provide for on-street parking. At this point, nothing would prevent somebody from parking there today. So I think what the planners noted, that there's an excess of available parking on site at the 1.25. I think these units, I'm not sure if they're 1 or 2 bedrooms, but we could expect that it'll probably be single person residing in them, maybe 2. So we could expect that the parking on site will accommodate the use. But other than winter regulations on street parking, that would be the only thing that applies presently. Thanks.
Follow up?
I knew there was no regulation for us parking or not parking, but it was one of the concerns. And when I was reading the report, people are only allowed or construction people, I don't know, builders or whatever, 1.25 parking spots per unit. That seems kind of ridiculous. Who's going to drive 1/4 of a car? So I was happy to see that he has more parking spots, but can we get this changed somehow from 1.25 to like 2 or 1?
So it's interesting, the 1.25, again, it would be if you end up at a ratio of 7.5, it would automatically go to the higher number, 8 minimum requirements. Right now, the minimum parking space for a single-family home, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's one for a single-family home. So that, actually, the apartment building, as I understand it, requires more parking than a single-family home does. So that's, the intent is, the concerns are there's more traffic, there's more there's more vehicles parking, and the intent of the bylaw is to meet that constraint, that challenge that we have with apartment buildings. Thanks.
I'll come back to you, Councillor Trim, if you can hold it. Just to comment, those parking regulations that are established, I believe they're typically driven by the province, correct?
Yeah, to some degree, I think that together with just industry standards or practices, yeah.
And then the note is that we're a rural community, we're gonna remain a rural community, there's no transit coming in. So parking is something we have to consider, it has to be a balanced approach. I think the planner has worked with the proponent to make sure that this is a balanced approach. We have a challenge with Hume Street, and streets like Hume, where we have to consider parking. It hasn't elevated itself for us to commit resources to managing parking on streets, but it is something we need to monitor, and if it is, it'll come back to council. We'll have to figure that out. Good? Councillor White, anything else?
Just said, following up on that, I wasn't worried about people parking on the street. I was worried more about to find out if it was regulation width. Because if it's not, then we should, I don't know if we can do anything about that or not now, because you'd have to take property from people. And just one more question, and I know somebody told me this, but I have a hard time believing it. So the building itself, the front facing is going to be not the patios, but the other side? The entrance is not going to be the end, right? Like that's right there. That's going to be what people see when they drive down Hume Street.
Yeah, this is showing as the front elevation.
Okay.
And then this will be the rear elevation towards the parking.
Okay,
And
Thank
then,
you.
as Councillor Trim noted, there's no windows on the side.
yeah.
Thanks.
Now, I did ask them that question already. All right, thank you.
Excellent, good questions. Next, any other members of council? Councillor Moore?
Yes, the street is wide enough. There's sidewalks.
Is there?
Yes, there's sidewalks on the south side
Okay.
that have to be redone, as well as the street has to be redone, as well as the underground piping has to be done. And my question is to Deanna, is that water main, current water main sufficient to supply this building, or do we have to come in from the main street?
Superintendent Nicholson?
I'm sorry, I am not aware of what the capacity is in that line, so we'd have to do some investigation and get back to you.
Planner, was that considered in the application?
I believe that's something we'd typically consider throughout the site plan process. So for the zoning bylaw amendment, it wasn't a major consideration. For the site plan process, it will be addressed.
Perfect, good.
I only say that because it's in the works for upgrade to 6-inch for that whole street to supply possible further extension to the street. This was never discussed, so I'm just wondering if 4 inches is sufficient, that's all.
Perfect, we'll put that on the list, please. Especially if when we go to get the site plan confirmed, may trigger other works as part of that plan. Good. Good question. Just one more person, I'll give the opportunity to ask questions first before I go on second round. Deputy Mayor, anything from you?
No, I have everything answered. Thank you very much.
Good. Back to Councillor Trim.
Yes, just to note that whenever they're establishing parking spots, it's an average, because some people may not have a car at all, and some people might have two, so, and then they factor in visitors. But the other thing about the street is that it's not a through street. So there's not through traffic, and so that makes it easier to navigate parking that could be on the street. Winter maintenance is a different matter. People should be considerate and move the car so snowplows can do their job. But other than that, it's wide enough.
Good. No other questions from council? I just have one. I had a question, Planner. Could you speak to peer review of the nitrate study? It does occur, and just remind council why a peer review is done.
Peer review would be done by the town hiring out a third-party engineer to review a study to verify or argue against the findings of the original study. In this case, that original study with the 2 triplexes was peer-reviewed by the town. It was in agreement with the findings of that the site, or it discouraged the use of a conventional septic system and encouraged the use of the tertiary system as recommended in that report. At that time, there were also concerns about the size of the lot and the ability to support the septic system, but it was also coming forward as 2 separate lots with 2 triplexes. Since the study was updated and it's a 6 residential unit development on 1 lot, we have not had the updated version peer reviewed, but the capacity and the proposal was the same or similar in terms of capacity and in terms of impact, in terms of septic assessment and things like that. So the recommendation for the tertiary study, I think we can stick through, and with the 1 lot versus 2, I think there's no longer any lot size concerns from that front with fitting the septic system. But yeah, so we've had it peer reviewed in the past. Since it's been updated, we have not, but the findings of that peer review, I think, are consistent with the current proposal, with the lot size concerns being alleviated as 1 lot versus 2.
Good. The other thing, I'll just reiterate what was brought up, I think, with Councillor White with respect to tertiary systems. This is becoming more and more frequently something used, especially for the infill and old grandfathered lots that exist in our settlement areas. And I think we just have to continue to improve those processes to encourage that infill. Examples like this, where we're able to offer a different type of housing to support the growth of the community, is exactly what we need to do. And as long as those processes continue to develop to help with that type of development in the future. Fair? Good. Any other comments or questions from any members of council? Good. With that, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's unanimous. So those 2 are carried. Thank you. Good. And with that, as per our amendment, we're going to revert back to the original agenda. We'll come to item 9.1, which is the Westmeath boat launch. And we're going to play some musical chairs. That's all right. The recommendation is very long. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region, 1, proceed to the construction phase of the project. 2, authorize an expenditure for the construction phase to an upset limit of $200,000, representing a maximum total project cost of $236,156.35, including non-refundable HST, to be funded through the reprioritization of the 2026 capital project, play structure for Cobden and Fortress Falls Park. Direct staff to apply for a permitted location for a local waste transfer facility, LWTF, and associated project and storage and reuse of dredged material. And 4, direct staff to apply for any applicable funding to support the cost of the project. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Trim. And this is going to our Manager of Community Services.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to check with Sean. Do we have a representative from Gemtech, Garth Holder, joining us virtually for this report today. So thank you, Garth, for taking the time to be with us. So I will present my report, and Garth is going to assist us with any of the questions that we have to go forward with. Okay. So this report is a lot. I recognize that. And I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning a lot. And what we're looking for now is to proceed with the next step. So as you know, the Westmeath boat launch is owned by the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. It's maintained by us through a lease agreement, which we just renewed in the fall of 2025. In November, we've engaged Gemtech to help us develop a plan for the dredging work required at the boat launch. And the cost associated that we had agreed to was $36,156.35, including non-refundable HST, which was taken from our $100,000 that was set for the overall budget of this project in the capital plan for this year. As we move forward in this project, we need to make some decisions on how we move forward with the next best steps based on some of the preliminary testing that was done. So Gemtech carried out testing in the fall of 2025, and then in January proceeded to application for the Department of Fisheries and Oceans with the Fish and Fish Habitat Protection Program. As a result of that application, we did get back a letter of advice. So we do have a proposed project that has been, I would say, approved to a point. We do need to follow up with another approval through another organization to proceed. In order to do that, though, we need the go-ahead to the construction phase. So Gemtech has assisted us in coming up with 4 options. They've ruled out the first 2. And the next option will be based on the results of testing. So as you can see in the letters which were attached, the plan right now is to be using a long reach excavator, working from the adjacent berm, dredging the material up, placing it into 2 large bins, which will likely be stored on site. And that will have to sit there and dry on site inside these bins. And once it is dried, it will be retested. So the initial testing that came back in November has told us that the silt is likely not going to be something we can use in an agricultural property. It will need to either be stored for future future industrial use, or it'll be waste. In which case, we would have to find a spot for the waste soils to be taken, and that is the difference between the $200,000 option and the $75,000 option. So to date, like I said, we've agreed to spend $36,000, and the total upset limit on the options in the recommendation was $236,000. We're looking at moving 1,500 tons off-site. And if it is waste material, we could take it in our waste site. Our superintendent has given us some notes as well for considerations to take that material into our waste site. She's putting forward that it's basically 11% of 1 year's capacity at our waste site. If we were forced to have to waste that material, obviously it would be cheaper for us to waste it at our own waste site versus ship it out to what would be a GFL type location, like the CARP waste site. Therefore, we're paying trucks to take that material elsewhere. At the landfill's current tipping fee, it looks like that would represent a loss of around $165,000, which would we be charging ourselves in kind. The waste level soils would have to be dealt with. If the soil is found to be clean and industrial standards that we could reuse, we would then have to apply for a permit to store that in a location within our municipality, come up with a project that it would be destined for, which could be parking lot, or if it is deemed usable, it could potentially be cover for the waste site. It would depend on what it looks like after it's dried and tested, and we don't know that until we're into the project. So we've engaged with Gemtech, and they've come up with the 4 options. The only funding that is land use for 2026 is obviously the parks and play structure funding in Cobden. Therefore, the $142,000 potentially could be earmarked for use to cover the cost of this project. As a result of this report and some timely communication that has come from Gemtech, another option to consider, I don't want to say an option, another point that has been made would be considering like a test dredge, whereas you would go in, you would still have to dredge up enough material, and it would be tested likely just 2 bins versus the multiple bins that we would have if we did the entire project. And they're estimating the cost of that would be around $25,000. So it would be less. It would probably give us a little bit more of an idea of what it will test like when it is dry, the dredged material. But again, it would still have to be tested if we waited to do it in the next year budgeting again. So we would still be waiting to find out what it would be. The noted disadvantage to that would be we're still taking on the full cost of the equipment, finding the long-reach excavator, bringing it in, having it do all of its work, renting the 2 units to only send them back when we're done, as opposed to continuing with the project and keeping it going and renting it more than once under a different timeline. The other thing that we wanted to note was, after conversations, it seems the maintenance dredging should be taken under consideration every 10 years. So originally, it's been 25 years since we dredged this project right now. And if every 10 years we wanted to consider that, potentially saving money through time, you're looking at $20,000 a year if the cost was $200,000. I'm just throwing numbers. This is just something to consider. In addition, I've reached out to the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and at this time, they can't confirm whether or not there would be funding available. They would have to know more of the scope of the project. And their new fiscal year doesn't start till April 1st. So regardless, I can't get an answer from them. They did send me a few other funding opportunities. It looks like some of the funding opportunities you're not able to be a municipality and apply for. So I'm still looking, but those are out there potentially. I think I'll leave it at that, and I don't know, Garth, if there's anything you want to add into my comments before we go to questions?
I hope that everybody can hear me. That's the first thing.
Yes, we have you.
Okay, thank you. No, Stephanie's report was very clear. This project is still very fluid. We're coming up with different scenarios as we as late as last evening, when she considered or asked about a smaller project, and we suggested that a test dredging or bringing it right back to a smaller project would help with identifying some of the assumptions that we have made going into the project. Again, it's easy to dredge the material from the channel. It's the handling of the material once it comes out, and dealing with the soils underneath the excess soil regulations of Ontario. It is a very expensive ordeal to move that material off-site and use it as from a commercial mover to take it a long, long ways away. And I'm sure that the township can identify some sort of a project on within the township that could see the reuse of this material should it test cleaner, should it test suitable to be reused. The sediment samples that we took in November were from the surface, which tend to be the most, which tend to be a finer sediment, and that usually collects a higher percentage of contamination. So we think that once this material is taken out and mixed, that we will find that it's going to be a little bit easier to deal with. And once it's dried and decanted of water, it will become a suitable material to do either building berms or landscaping, roadways, parking lots, that kind of material, that kind of work. The level of contamination shouldn't be too concerning. It's the same level of contamination that you'll find in most parking lots. It has residual fuels as well as road salts, and those are the three. Those are the contaminations that are present in that sediment. And as Stephanie said, it's not going to be the previous time that this was done. It was placed on the fields where the O'Brien Winery is now, underneath his house. It happens to be underneath his house, and that practice of putting it on farmland is no longer acceptable. So
Good.
Okay?
And sorry, I've lost you. Garth, is that right? Yeah. Thank you, Garth.
Yes, Garth.
Yeah, perfect. What we'll do now is we're going to open it up to council for questions and comments. And we'll send them through Stephanie, and then she'll decide whether or not she wants to flip them to Garth. Okay? So the mover is Councillor Moore. You're up first.
Okay, I certainly understand the ramifications around this. I'm a little miffed at how the soil underneath the Ottawa River can be so contaminated, considering there's no industry in this area. But nonetheless, we have to deal with it. So just wondering if we could proceed this year with the money allotted to do enough dredging to allow usage of the big pontoon boats to get back out onto the river, if that would be encompassed of the small amount of money and the couple of dredging buckets with the waste until it becomes tested. Would that be enough to open it up for this year and perhaps put it on next year's budget again?
Start, Garth. So with the smaller project, not saying it's not possible, with the testing area, again, the costs are higher. You're bringing in the equipment more than once, recognizing that. When you're dredging a small area, from what I'm gathering, you're not going as deep and the infill happens quicker. So as boats come in, everything kinds to fill in more. So, I mean, through time, you're not saving as much as what you think you may be. And the depending factor here is what the soil tests like once it's dry. We could have enough in current budget with just a small overage, depending on what the soil tests like. I just don't want to have to come back in July and say, hey, the soil's testing badly, now I need another $100,000. I'll let Garth, is there anything else you want to add?
The other thing to look for is the level of the Ottawa River. Last year was at an all-time low, and it really showed that the channel had filled in. So in May and June, it should be of a level that will allow the launching of some of these pontoon boats. But again, if it goes low again, like in September and October, they'll be stuck. The test dredging that we discussed last night would be about 150 square meters of dredging, or 10 by 15, which would allow the cleaning of the bottom of the ramp to put a pontoon boat into. There may be other issues farther along the channel that we have not identified yet, or that we can't see. And when we were there in November, it was late in the season, and we did not have an opportunity to carry out a full bathymetric survey of the channel. So hope to be able to come back in the spring when there's some water that we can float some sort of craft and assess how far the problem goes out. Okay.
Okay,
I'll
thank you.
flip it back. Councillor Moore, you're good?
Yes, I'm good.
Okay, seconder was Councillor Trim.
Yes, with respect to Councillor Moore, I am very adamant that if we start this, we finish it. We do it this year. We don't keep kicking it down the road and into different councils. And if we're going to do it, and there seems to be money available to do it, I am going to vote very strongly in favor of doing it. I just am disappointed. Another thing in the report, I'm against taking up airspace in our landfill site. I mean, we're just working against ourselves. We get a compactor to gain airspace, and then we put this stuff in. I'd be against that. We have property around the township that should be able to accommodate this material. I know that our manager is behind me, and she's going to be shaking her head viciously because the old West Meath dump is officially closed. You're not even supposed to put a weed or anything in there, but that would be just perfect. Spread thinly over the top, it's silt. And any petroleum products that are in there are going to evaporate out. The salt, well, whatever it does, anywhere else in the township. So again, strongly in favor of doing, if we're starting it, we do it. And I'm glad to see that the costs don't involve our equipment. The guys are going to be busy this summer. They can't be involved in this. I do think, however, part of, and the mayor and I have observed, and also you, Stephanie, part of the problem is material washing from the parking lot. So we're having, yes, we're having silt coming down the creek, fine, but we're also having stuff washing down the parking lot. So I'm hoping that there's consultation with the roads department to see if there's something that could be done to divert the water away from the ramp so that it doesn't end up filling up our trench. I know we have a supply of recycled asphalt. I don't know if it'd be appropriate to put some of that there, but that should be considered. I'm hoping the roads department's going to be involved in this in that way. Yes, let's get on with it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Other members of council, questions or comments? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So I just have a couple of concerns. My first one, first of all, is the cost. We're looking at possibly $236,000 here. My question, and I don't know how or who has this answer, is how many boats actually are used at that boat launch yearly, or when has it been used last? We have a boat launch in Cobden. We have a boat launch in La Paz. What do we need another boat launch, just as we have had so many other things that are above and beyond? This is just another one. I don't understand why we need or what the purpose of this is. And the other one was regarding the pontoon boats. Well, once again, if you're traveling anywhere, you're going to trailer it to a pontoon. You're going to trailer it. Whether you trailer it to La Paz, you trailer it to Cobb, or you trailer it to you're going to trailer it. So I just don't understand the amount of money that, and I'll guarantee you, and I'll say it as I'm sitting here, we're going to start off with a cost here of $236,000. I will guarantee you, we do not end at $236,000. And I think anyone sitting around this table knows that. So let's just put that out there right now. I'd be shocked if we end up at $236,000. It'll be a lot more, because I think, Stephanie, as you mentioned, once you get into it, we don't know yet what we're getting into. So, yeah, those are my concerns. I have a real struggle with it. Thank you.
Good. Yeah, Manager Community Services, can you speak to the use of that boat launch, please?
So I can speak to the use to the point where we don't track it, right? We don't know. I know that it hasn't been well used in probably the last few years, mainly towards the end of the summer. From what I'm gathering, a lot of boats are launched and not a lot of boats are brought out. That's kind of what I'm getting, because the water's too low. If you're putting your boat in, if you're keeping it in for the whole season, that's not the place you're going to take it out. If that's what my understanding is. To be able to track use in parks as well as use in playgrounds, as well as use in boat launches. My staff this year are going to be going around with an inspection checklist, and I've asked them to just randomly take note. How many people, how many cars, I just want something in paper while they're going there weekly. In the case of the Westmeath boat launch, my staff go there, and I'm not sure, maybe Al could speak to that better, but once every 2 weeks, and mainly empty garbage. That's all they do there. There's not a lot of garbage use, obviously, for picking up every 2 weeks. So that's about all I have for that.
Thank you.
And the use of the pontoon boats and the trailers, the access to that part of the river, if I'm not mistaken, can't be accessed from La Paz. So if you put your boat in at La Paz, you can't actually get into Westmeath. Am I understanding that correctly? So the only option for that part of the river is to put your boat in by by Westmeath, and then you access the Pembroke part of the river from there, if that makes sense.
Good, just before we open up to other comments, I'm just gonna ask the clerk here to pull up a map. So just in terms of the area that we're talking about outside the Westmeath Provincial Park, so that big body of water on the Ottawa River is called the Allymount Lake. Between the Quebec Bridge at Cottenham Island, which has rapids, and the rapids that occur along Rapid Road there, yeah, right in that area, those are two non-navigable portions of the river. So the only public access that exists into Allymount Lake between those 2 points is in Westmeath. And that access is used by MNRF, MECP, Department of Fisheries and Oceans, OPP, Fire. We have in the past attempted to secure funding through these other agencies who need this point for access as much as we do. We have been unsuccessful to date. But that is the reason that boat launch exists compared to the one in La Paz. There are ways to get through some of these rapids, but they're not classified as navigable. And if you had a pontoon boat, you'd have to be pretty brave or very experienced on the water. So that's just the location, that just to set the tone for what the deputy mayor had asked. Good? Okay, with that, Councillor White, you're the only one who hasn't, you have an opportunity before I go second round.
Okay, you said something, through you, Mayor, to Stephanie, you said something that if you use boat launch to launch your boat, you can't bring it back out. So how do you get it back out?
So you can, I mean, as long as you're doing it before the water's dried up, you would have to go to Pembroke.
So why can't they launch in Pembroke?
Good point.
I'm
Pull
not-
it out through private areas. So individuals that might have a
Okay.
beach where they could access it in that way.
Okay. Okay, now I just found out something very interesting talking to my colleague here. We have a water rescue agreement with Pembroke. So we have to have this boat launch in order to have this water rescue agreement. No?
Chief's not here, I can't envision it. Can you comment at all? Can staff comment to that?
Yeah, I think and again, I may stand corrected, but I think the boat, the watercraft that they utilize, they can access at most points the water. Like, they don't need to be at a launching location. Maybe they could access it from a private property quite easily, but we can confirm that with them. I don't know that for sure, but I think that the trailer and the boat that they have could be launched at, and they will launch it at any possible location in an emergency.
Okay. Okay.
What I am pitching it is a big, like amphibious, like a military kind of craft that you could carry with an outboard on it, so they could, 6 or 8 guys could pick this thing up and move it into the water from any point.
Okay, so we don't really need this
Not
launch
for that fire and rescue.
Fire, okay.
That's what we're assuming. CAO is gonna have to confirm.
Okay, so why are we doing this then? Because I go back and forth on this, but now that I know we don't need it for fire rescue or water rescue, the people can take their boats to to Pembroke and get onto the water. And we're spending I'm gonna say close to $300,000, and then we have to put $20,000 away each year for this. Can someone explain this to me? Because this is a lot of money for, I go back and forth, I admit it.
It's good. I'll open up to staff and then I'll go second round here. Any comments?
I mean, obviously, for an economic development perspective for the town of Westmeath, it's an absolutely sustainable thing that is nice to have. I would say that the access to the water has been always provided, and taking something away is a tough decision. So there are people that use it. There are options to be able to charge fees, which some of our boat launches have. But the maintenance, the upkeep, the overall cost, what you're going to make in a launch fee isn't going to be substantially enough to cover some of these routine maintenance costs.
Good, and with that, I'm going to hold you. You're going to have to keep that. I'm going to go to Councillor Trim first, and then we'll come back.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. There's a winery now in that location. And last spring, early summer, when the water was high enough, Jason O'Brien, the owner, has reported to me that there was new traffic, and quite a bit of it coming to the winery. This Lower Alumet Lake is a jewel in the crown of the township. It's one of the reasons why we advertise and want people to move here, is because there's recreation. And it can't only be rinks. It's got to be, not everybody does that. There's fishermen and there's pleasure craft people. And so I'm thinking that this is something that we could reasonably spend money on to promote the township and promote tourism and to promote our businesses in the township. So I know I was just stopped yesterday by Jason O'Brien wondering what the rules would be, bring this up at another time, with a food truck down there, because he's expecting more traffic off the river. But I really do believe that this is worthwhile. I'm not going to argue with our engineer who's present with us by video, but I think there are some strategies we could take going forward where we could mitigate the need to have to dredge as often as we have been. I think there's some solutions to that. If we could just, with permits and everything doing properly, over time, divert the flow of the creek slightly away from the dredged area. I think that would help. And so I still speaking in favor of this for many other reasons. Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Open up any other secondary comments. Councillor Wright.
Just to follow up on on usage, can people use it now? Well, not
It's
in the
not
middle of
closed.
winter, but.
Yes, you can use it, yep, by
So
all
people
means.
can launch their boats there?
Small boats, yes.
Okay.
Yep,
So it is being used there?
correct, yep.
Except the pontoon boats?
It's linked to the water levels in the Ottawa.
Okay.
So come the spring, there's more than sufficient water there. You could probably launch from Jason O'Brien's winery. But as we hit about August, the water level goes down so far that it is in some points, it is at the level of the silt. So you put your boat in there and it's a big boat that needs water. It just slides off the trailer and into silt, and then it can't move. So you can imagine, the dredging will open up and make it usable for the majority of the water levels.
Okay, so the people who use this boat launch, they're familiar with all this. I mean, they know at certain times of the spring, summer, fall that they just can't use it, right? So, I mean, this is a service we've been providing for when we're able to, correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and you can think of it, we don't offer the service. It just exists. With that boat launch, the only thing that we do as a township at that location is push out the dock. And people use it whenever the water allows it to be used. Yeah.
You said we put a dock out there, so we're making it accessible to them then.
From a dock, but we're not doing any other maintenance on it.
We don't have garbage cans down there?
sorry, maybe there's garbage cans.
Like,
I'm talking
but we are
specifically to the boat
providing,
launch.
we are providing the service, and we have been providing the service. Even if you say we aren't, we have been, because we've dredged it before, right?
Yes,
Okay, so, okay, thank you.
good. Any other questions? Yes, Councillor Moore.
This has been discussed around this table for the 8 years I've been involved in council, and before that, in many previous meetings. This is the first time that we've actually got this far to talk about doing this. It's been discussed every year about dredging. It has been brought up numerous times whether it be important for fire or private boat, private craft, or for emergency situations. And we do have people upstream towards Pembroke that can only launch their boats in Westmeath, and if the water's low, they can't launch. And the reason they have them cottages up there is because they want to access the river. And you cannot access Pembroke from this part of the river, which is really unfortunate. It'd be nice if they could pave over the 148 area, and we could go right through to Pembroke, but we can't. So this is a secluded area between two sets of rapids, but it's the calmest part of the river, I believe, in all of the river, with housing on it which can't access the river because they can't put their boats in. I really think we have to push forward. I know it's a lot of money, but if we build it, they will come. And it's been the attitude of the locals for years, and now all of a sudden they're getting very discouraged because they have to keep their tin cans as opposed to getting a larger boat for the large amount of water, and it's really unfortunate. So I really think I'm of the concern that we can't hold off, we should go ahead. And in my 8 years, it's been long enough discussing it, and I think we have to bite the bullet. And I know money's tough. We just finished discussing budget, and there's not a lot of money out there. And where we scrimp and save, is a miracle of how sometimes our treasurer manages all this. But I think we're going to have to bite the bullet, and every year we're going to have to put money aside.
Good. Any additional comments? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
One final one, and I'm going to kind of put this right to Jet. Sorry.
It's okay.
$236,000. Can you, any way we can sit here and say it will not exceed that total? Is that even an option at this point in time?
No, I can't.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Good. So if council's done, I'm going to ask a couple questions from myself. Then we will call for the vote. I just want to appreciate the quantity that's being forecasted, the 1,500 tons. That assessment's based on a 16 by 58 meter area. Will that area be enlarged once you've had a chance to put a boat out to actually do the sonograph or whatever the way of measuring the depth?
I'm not sure, I know, you mean from its current state? Yes, it would fit the width of the boat from its current state. We were inquiring with the project plan on what type of boat to size, and that was the type of boat. That's correct. I don't know if Garth, you want to comment on that further?
We had a draft, or we had a preliminary plan that shows a pontoon boat on the opposite side of the float. We would make accommodations for a pontoon boat to come on that side of the float, and so it could park along the berth, along the floating dock, and not impede the launch. So we made it extra wide there. So typically it is about a 16 by a 50 meter long area to dredge out, and that accounted for the quantity of the 1,500 tons.
So sorry, I'll rephrase the question. So you went 50 meters out the peninsula, but the peninsula is
correct.
like 200 meters long.
That's correct.
We
Yeah.
don't know the additional silt that may need to be removed beyond the 50 meters to make it navigable?
That's correct.
So the scope of the material that needs to be dredged is, we can't assess that right now.
That's correct. The scope that we are looking at right now for this particular project is a 16 by 50 meter dredged area.
I'm just gonna say one thing. So based on what happened 25 years ago when it was dredged, we don't know how far it went. So we don't know the actual length of, I mean, we know how long the berm is that's there, but we don't know what the dredged length was. We don't have any description of that.
Good. The next question is just, have we, you've said you've done the plan for the dredging to suit a pontoon, whatever that size of that pontoon boat, but at what river level is that correlated to? So, I'm just imagining, there will be a period at a certain river height where the dredging is not planning to allow it to be serviceable at that water height?
On this particular job, we have estimated excavating 1 meter of silt. And the pontoon boat, from the photographs that we received this last fall, we could see the silt was very, very close to the water level. So if the water drops down to last year's level, after dredging, there still should be 1 meter of water underneath the low water mark. Or, I'm sorry, there should be 1 meter of depth before you hit the silt.
And those photos were the ones taken late August, last summer?
There were some photographs in August that were put onto the website, as well as we had some in November, which were about the same level of water.
Perfect. Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that we acknowledge the height, given the water flow or the depth changes. Just to come back to the contaminant side, if this was as simple as just moving the silt and pulling it to a farmer's field or a portion, once you test the soil, is it by sector, or because you test it at the front end where it's potentially contaminated by runoff from the creek, do you retest 50 meters down and, okay, there's nothing here, so we can treat this as farmer's soil? Can we contain the contaminated area and only have to deal with that specific soil?
Yeah, there were 3 samples that were taken along the length of the berm, and all 3 contained some level of contamination that would prevent the use on a farmer's field. And that would have been the salt or the sodium content of the soil. The petroleum hydrocarbon contamination is a lower level, it's a low level, but it prevents its use on agriculture or what's the other one? A playground or recreation. So it needs to go into a commercial or industrial area.
Good. And you're not expecting it to dilute once it's dewatered and you've taken more than just the test area, you've dug the whole meter down. Given that volume of dirt, you're not expecting it to come back after testing to say, okay, now it can be used in a field, it's diluted sufficiently enough?
I don't think so. It probably would be not in the township's best interest to do that, knowing that there were some samples taken in the channel at one time that were higher than what agricultural standards were.
We would in essence retain some liability.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, just to be clear, about the weight, like once the soil's out, the water has been removed, it's been tested. The point, so we're basically treating it as a minimum, we're treating it as commercial soil, based on the tests that we've received so far, but I'm just trying to understand the risk of where it might still be having to be treated as pure waste. Can you provide any scope, like a measure of risk associated with one versus the other?
If the material was taken out of the harbor or out of the channel and placed directly into the back of a truck and sent off to one of the waste facilities, you in my experience here in the Maritimes is that we run into transporting a lot of water. And anytime that you have the opportunity to take the material out of the water and separate the water from the soil, you can reduce the quantity of the waste by sometimes 1/2. It's usually about 1/3 that as the water decants, the moisture comes out of the soil, and then you're not dealing with the water at a waste facility. It's a substantially less amount of material that you have to deal with. So we've always promoted the idea: bring the material out, get the water out of it, take another look at the material to see what you have, and then make your decisions on that, how you're going to use that product.
Good, Garth, I'm tracking that. And I appreciate the need to try to save as much on the transportation of the product and handling waste water at another site. But in terms of its measurement, like if it's, in terms of the level of contamination, in my mind, I'm thinking if there was 5 levels, at level 3, it becomes waste, but at levels 1 and 2, it's considered commercial waste, commercial soil that we can use on a parking lot. We can store it and use it as a parking lot. Right now, if we were to pull it out and not to have the volume or just based on the tests, it is classified as waste?
No, it's classified as its characteristics are commercial and industrial, and so that you could use that material or place it in a commercial industrial area. It does not have to go to a waste facility, so to speak.
Perfect. I'm just going to go back to the manager of community services because the report speaks to potentially having to haul it to CARP or to use it in our waste our landfill. How does that correlate with what Garth just said?
Sorry, Garth, the report that we had did say that it was potentially in exceedance for industrial commercial use. Am I?
It was my understanding. So I gave you, we identified the 4 options. The two options of reusing it on a farm field or leaving it in place were not the options. If it was put into the back of a truck right away and sent away to a facility that would accept wet waste, then it would have been a substantial cost to that. And the 4th option, which we believe is the option that could be considered, it's a much reduced cost of handling the material within the community, decanting the water, and then placing the soil in an appropriate location in the community.
Yes, but so the initial testing that you did in November, to be clear, did say that it was an exceedance on the initial test, correct? In November?
It was my understanding that those tests that were done in November showed that it was in the industrial commercial realm of contamination. So it could not be used in agricultural land. It could not be able to use it in recreational. It would have to stay in the industrial commercial realm of soil characteristics.
Okay, if you just want to send us the data on that, we'll
I
just.
will,
Yeah,
yep,
I think that's
yep.
fine. We'll clear that up. Thank you.
Yep.
What that brings to my mind is that the risk associated with it being higher than 236 is really associated with if it has to be treated as waste. If we can now determine that it is not going to be classified as waste, and Garth has said as much, then the fact that the high end of 236, worst case, that is the worst case. It's not going to go higher unless there's some unforecasted event that occurs. But there's no chance that we will have to consider hauling this to CARP or taking away 11% of our landfill.
I still hesitate to say there's no chance. I'm not a betting person, but
CEO.
Yeah, Garth, if I could ask you a question real quick, Garth. So this commercial industrial characteristics or category, or however we're defining it, can you give examples of where we might dispose of in a scenario where it's commercial industrial, please? Thanks.
Because one of the contaminants is salt or sodium, some of the places that you could place this material would be in your work areas. I did a quick drive down the highway using Google Earth the other day to check out the Westmeath work area where the salt dome is. And I can see from the Google Earth or from the Google Street View if it's still valid, that there is some asphalt and sand in the parking lot. There's things like that. So you could build for example, you could use that material to build a berm so that you could so you wouldn't actually see that material from those products from the road. You can dress up your properties a bit with more elevated berms, knolls, things like that.
If I could
And that
ask,
would be-
thanks
that
so
would be
much,
in the
Garth.
course
I
later.
appreciate that.
Yep.
I think there's an interpretation of the report, which is what we're clarifying right now, which is great. What are the chances that is there a chance that when you remove the soil, decant it, dry it out, that it tests greater than the limits we've tested already? That would then necessitate it to be waste.
I can't guarantee that because over the 25 years that this is infilled, we're not sure what has happened at that facility. If somebody has dumped, if there's been a fuel spill or if there's been, more contamination below. But typically, and in my experience of harbors and dredging, is that the contamination sticks to the finer particles, which, because of resuspension, always land on top layer of what was tested last November. So when you go with a homogeneous sample, which would be a full depth sample, which we were not able to capture last year, you'd need an excavator or special equipment to do that, drill rigs, things like that. But if you get a full depth sample, typically the lower levels are less contaminated than the top. And when it's all mixed together, you get a sediment sample that is less contaminated than the top.
Thanks so much. And then if for Stephanie, or through Stephanie to Garth, like the next steps, we need to actually tender the project, which will give us an estimate of the cost. But we need to know where we're putting this stuff in a couple scenarios, perhaps. So is that correct? The next process is to tender it and see what the prices come back? Is that my understanding?
So the next step is to register one of your sites for access fill, and register it with the Ministry of Environment. That will tell them that you're dredging this material out and you're not placing it in a place that it shouldn't go. And then identify that project so that we can wrap it into the work plan. We've been contracted to produce work instructions for a contractor to come in. And as I said earlier, this is still kind of a fluid project. We're still working some of the plans out, but they would bring in the containers, the long reach, and they would carry out the instructions of the work program.
Thanks so much. So I guess through you, Stephanie, I mean, the recommendation from staff stands. I mean, at this point in time, we expect that finding a suitable site for the commercial industrial soil, which if it's not testing at a higher characteristics than present, we could find a site for that. So we expect that the cost will be not the full 236, but realistically in the range of the 75,000, that other option, plus the engineer of 36. So we're probably in the range of about 115. But once we get the scope of work and and quotes then, or bids, or we'll have a better idea of what the cost is. Does that make sense, through you,
Yep,
Steph?
and just to add to that, the plan for the storage of this soil and/or fill is a project that has to be permitted and/or applied for. So there's another process, another hoop to jump through with the Ontario regulation that requires it. So that will be part of the next steps as well.
Excellent. Thank you for your patience. This is an important one that I know we're working through it as we get it. I have two other comments that I wanted to make. The first one is just related to the contamination, the petroleum and the sodium. I'm assuming that it is coming from the storm sewers on Westmeath Road. In your experience, Garth, are there ways or mechanisms that we can work with the organization that maintains that road and that storm sewer to ensure that the contamination doesn't continue in the future? And we're not faced with the same concern if we were to have a repeat of this down the road?
I'm not familiar with the storm sewer and the configuration of the storm sewers. There are some storm sewer there are some storm sewers that are available that reduce the amount of contamination somehow. We used one in a product or in a parking lot here along the coastline. Again, there are specialty type sump, and they require to be maintained more frequently than a regular catch basin. It may be hard to separate the. Again, what you're trying to do is to reduce the particles coming down, which will eventually dump into the hole that's there. There may if I speak out of line here, the report that was done earlier from the consulting firm seemed to put a lot of the blame on the infilling from the stream. There may be two ways to look at that. The infilling may be occurring at that particular boat launch as a result of the berm that's placed there. And in a discussion with Jason O'Brien, who's been a long-term resident of the area, he and I think his late father had noticed some changes to the shoreline as a result of the berm being built. So there could be some effort to look at the configuration of that berm as a way to prevent further infilling in that area or reduce the infilling.
Perfect. Just further complicated the whole.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, no,
that's what it's
I'm
all
tracking.
about. So
Okay.
Yeah.
From a staff perspective, I know that FCM offers grants for brownfields and cleanups of situations like this. Have we considered FCM as a potential grant source to offset some of the funding?
As of right now, I have a list. I'll make sure it gets added.
Perfect. Good. And I just would remind council, I think it was brought up by maybe Councillor Moore, but just capital works like this, when we know we're going to have to repeat it, there is a life cycle cost to this. So there is an annual cost that right now we're still at the point where we're trying to figure out what those are and prioritizing them. But by approving this project, we're suggesting that this is something that will be included as an annual requirement. Good. The last comment, I'll just make it from a personal perspective. I am in support of making sure we keep this boat launch open. I know that this isn't the best circumstance, or we don't have the exact cost of what it could be, but I am leaning towards finding a way to make sure that that portion of the river remains accessible, not only to our residents, but also to support tourism and the other agencies that we need in such an emergency, in emergencies and those kinds of situations. Good. I would, well, I'll save the rest for later. No, that's good. We'll do the vote first because it doesn't matter. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just gonna, one more thing. Just the funding that if it goes over the $100,000, and I'm assuming the recommendation would have to be amended. Given that, I just want there to be some clarification. If the funding for the parks is used in portion or in full, without being able to plan for the parks this year, like a play structure will be removed in Cobden. And we may need to find some funding to replace or leave it, just so that we're clear that we only have $100,000 in our budget, and it may go over that based on what we have. So I just wanted to be clear that based on ordering play structures and all of those timelines that happen, if we're waiting on these projects, this will have an effect. I'm just putting that out there.
No, and that's a good question. I just want to, it comes back to the recommendation that's before us. Item 2 in that recommendation speaks to an upset limit of 200,000 plus the engineering costs. Are we suggesting, based on the staff's review of what Garth has shared with us now, that we can change that recommendation to 100,000? Or does it stay as written and therefore have the implication on the playground?
I think I would recommend we leave it as is, recognizing that any surplus would be back prioritized to the original project, which would be the play structures. But again, we could come back to council once we have more information to get those details. Are you suggesting that item 2 get reduced to 115,000, which is the 36 plus the 75 at the upset limit? We could certainly do that. My concern is that if we come back from getting quotations and it's 100 and it's over that amount, then I look to my director to see what her input is on that, mind you.
I didn't know if that was a consideration of council. I would prefer it stays the way it is, if I'm being completely honest. But if that is a consideration to lower it, just being aware that there are implications to what happens with other budgets.
Yeah. Good. Any thoughts from council? Good. I see none. Well, with that, the recommendation that's before us, do you need me to reread it? Yes, Councillor White?
I just have a question on it, though. So
Yes.
there were options down here that we could just start something and then, like, do a test.
Yes.
So we aren't talking about doing the test. We're talking about starting this and going until it's done.
That's correct.
Okay.
These were options that were presented, but if you wanted to consider one of those options, it would be an amendment to the recommendation.
I'm good.
Okay,
Thank
good.
you.
Final call? Yes, Deputy Mayor?
We proceed with this recommendation, we're moving forward. That is correct. And we will have to vote today whether we're going to do this or not. So I will request a recorded vote on this. I think it's important enough. There's enough money being spent here. And I think I would like a recorded vote. Thank you.
Good. Acknowledged, Deputy Mayor. So I'm going to hand the floor over to the clerk, who will walk us through a recorded vote.
Yeah, thanks so much. So the process is such that we're prepared to vote, is that correct? We're at the stage of voting? Great. So the recorded vote is,
And officially call for the vote.
excellent, great, thanks. So through recorded vote, the order is such that the requester will go first, followed by the councillor in the order of the greatest number of votes. So it'll be to our deputy mayor, to Councillor White, Councillor Moore, Councillor Trim, and then to the mayor. So to you, Deputy Mayor Rieger, if you want to just identify what your vote is.
Not in favor.
Noted. And then to you, Councillor White.
In favor.
And then to you, Councillor Moore.
In favor.
Thank you. And then to Councillor Trim.
In favor.
And then to Mayor Nicholson.
In favor.
Great. So we have 4 votes in favor and 1 vote not in favor, and the motion is carried. Thanks.
Excellent. Good. Thank you, Garth, for joining us today, Manager of Community Services. What we'll do is we'll take a short recess at this point. We'll come back in 5 minutes at 2:45.
Okay, everybody, thank you.
Thank you. And welcome back to the Township of Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, March 4th. It's 2:49. We're going to call ourselves back to order. We had gotten through our amended agenda all the way to 9.1. We are now going to hear item 9.2, which is a Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant Annual Report. And the recommendation that we'll put on the floor is that the council of the Township of Whitewater Region receive this report for information purposes as it relates to the Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant operations. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Trim. And this is going to go to our Superintendent of Environmental Services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, like I said, we're starting with our wastewater treatment plant annual report for 2025 today. And we have Aqua here today with us. We have Megan Lockwood, who's our new PCB compliance technician, and Ashley Pilgrim, who is our senior operations manager. Megan is new with us here at Aqua. Maybe 6 months you've been around. Yeah. About that. So I'll just do a little bit of background on the report here, and then I'll pass it over to Aqua to give you guys the nitty-gritty details. The Cobden Wastewater Treatment Plant is subject to an environmental compliance approval, and that ECA requires that an annual summary report is prepared and delivered to the ministry as well as council. So Aqua prepared the report, and I can pull out a handful of the key details from last year's operations. So there were no ministry inspections or Ministry of Labor inspections. And there were a handful, we were 4 issues of noncompliance, which Megan will get into. Of note, our annual average daily flow for the wastewater treatment plant was 808 cubic meters per day, which is 80.8% of our 1,000 cubic meter day rating. So I've included in the report in the table, I've been adding each year on top so we can start to see a little bit of a trend over the years. So you can see we're hanging out at about between 75 and 80% over the last 4 years, I should say. The dates before that, from 2021 earlier, you'll note that was the old plant's rating, so the percentages are a little not necessarily not apples to apples. So if you look for 22 forward, you see that we're staying pretty stable around that 80% mark. In 2025, the plant treated 318,249 cubic meters of wastewater. And again, you can see the trending for the 4 previous years. And then we did have a number of 3 overflows in 2025. And again, we'll let Megan get into the details on that. The report also includes other details like complaints, sewer main blockages, and the volume of material that was taken to our landfill. So, and with that, I will pass it over to Ashley and Megan.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. As Deanna said, I'll kind of just dive a little more into the wastewater report. She did capture. Oh,
You can just pull that closer.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks.
can you hear me? So I'm just going to give a little bit further of an overview of some of the highlights that were captured in our wastewater annual report. So we did have 4 non-compliances, as Deanna had already mentioned. So those are for effluent limits that are outlined in our Environmental Compliance of Approval, or ECA. So we exceeded on ammonia in January 2025, and then total phosphorus in both November and December of this previous year. All of these were a result of maintenance activities at the plant involving interruptions or fairly significant changes to normal operations. We had 2 community complaints in the system. Both were related to blocked sewers, which were investigated by operations staff and found to be on the private side of the infrastructure. We had 1 spill in 2025, which was of biosolids that are processed by our centrifuge at the plant, and they were being transported to the landfill, and the trailer door unexpectedly opened, causing a spill. We had 3 overflow events in 2025 at the wastewater treatment plant. 2 of them were in the spring, which were caused by the spring freshet or significant rainfall events and runoff. which causes influent flows greater than the facility can handle. The third event for an overflow was in December, and this was caused by an equipment malfunction, which actually caused the facility to shut down and inhibited alarm callouts to notify staff that there was an issue. Deanna did speak to flows a little bit. Raw and treated flows were consistent with the previous few years, but that does put us at around 80% of our total capacity for the facility. Some of the operating issues experienced in 2025 include frozen sludge lines and service valves at the plant, condensation buildup on level sensors causing inaccurate measurements. The centrifuge has been struggling to process high enough volumes of sludge in order to maintain ideal operational parameters in the facility. We've been experiencing some significant foaming within the facility in the MBRs. And we're also seeing a decrease in the efficiency of the clean-in-place soaks, which are used to improve the permeability of the membranes. And lastly, the volume of sludge processed by the centrifuge was similar to previous years, and it's expected to remain similar yet again in 2026. And the dewatered biosolids from this process are taken to the Ross landfill site.
And that's everything. Does council have any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from council? I'll go to my mover first, who is Councillor Moore.
Just maybe a little more info on that third overflow we had that was mechanical failure. Did we in fact actually overflow, or was it just everything, something malfunctioned and we went into alarm?
The float in the equalization tank coming in had tripped under the water 18 feet down, so it caused, what was the term you used? What was the alarm term?
For that one,
Yeah.
I said inhibited the other.
It inhibited the other alarms and didn't recognize that that one was in alarm based on what was going on with it. It did overflow, but it went back in, like it still goes through the process as normal, correct?
No, that did cause an overflow similar to the high rain events.
Okay,
It overflowed designated overflow for the plant.
sorry, yes, it went through the designed overflow as they're supposed to, in that scenario when we do get high flows.
So all our alarm systems and catch whatever are working, or did we have to upgrade?
We had to replace the float that was in question and reprogram the system in such a way that it would acknowledge, or it would alarm out on every alarm that was active at that time.
So we know how old that was, so is that something we can put on the calendar for X number of years ahead, so this doesn't happen again, if perhaps the float only lasts
Now
for
that
so
the-
long a time?
Sorry, now that the program is in place, it will continue on as such.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Councillor Trim, you the seconder?
Yes, I've noticed that the amount that's being treated is sneaking up over years a little bit, staying around 80%. But the amount of sludge that's going to the landfill is going down, which is kind of ironic. I don't know if there's an explanation. I mean, happy about it, but I just wonder why that's happening.
The efficiencies we're finding now in the centrifuge, similar to your previous delegation that talked about the wet and the dry cake, the more efficient that the centrifuge is running, the drier it is, meaning it's lighter. So the better it runs, the lighter the loadings are at the landfill.
Other members of council? Yes, Councillor White?
Yes, I actually took the time and I read the full report because normally I don't, but I thought, you know what, let's see what this is all about. So, now some of this you can just say, you know, it's not appropriate, but when I look at page 1 and 2, let me get there first, there we go. Okay, page 1 and 2. Where is it? 1 and 2. Okay, there's something wrong here.
You're back to the start.
Oh, page 2, okay. Anyway, page 1 and 2, it says the annual flow in 2023 was 84.6%, but it was much higher than what we are currently at. Why is that? Page 7.
You're talking about the main report. There's a table in the main report, page 1 and 2.
Is that where it is?
So staff, can you speak to that decrease between 2023 up to 2025?
Yeah, so the wastewater treatment plant it obviously collects the water that's the treated water that comes into the town, but it also collects, unfortunately, some amount of stormwater. So inflow and infiltration. So you'll notice in 2023 and 2025 are the years that the flows were higher because those were wet. We had wet springs where we presumably got a lot coming in to the wastewater treatment plant. And those also are the years that we've had bypasses. In the years where they were drier, 2022, 2024, the numbers were a little bit less. So the difference, I can't say definitively, but the difference is likely to do with inflow and infiltration from stormwater, meltwater, and groundwater.
Okay.
Am I correct there, right, Ashley? Yeah.
Okay, 6.1, why do we use two different labs? Why don't we just stick with one, because you could get different readings from different labs, correct?
Typically, these ones were with,
6.1 specifically paragraph 3.
So one used Lakefield and then one used Caduceus.
oh, okay, go ahead.
We typically use SGS out of Lakefield. The reason that we were using Caduceus on a couple rare occasions was just due to logistics. They are located in Ottawa. There should not be, both of them are accredited by the Ministry of Environment for our use and follow very similar testing methods. So it should not be a concern that there might be a discrepancy in any results between using the two labs. But that is the reason that this year we did use Caduceus on it and include that in here.
Okay. Number 8, CIP. I just have to look what that is. Numerous clean in place soaks, okay. It says that the effectiveness declined. How badly? That was in one of the comments that is written here. Oh, number 8.
Clarify which section, yeah, 8?
Number 8. And it says foaming. Is it because you're using thicker sludge?
CAO, do you want to comment to that at all, or you?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I'll pass it to the superintendent of environmental services, recognizing that some of the details around the cleaning in places and the membranes, there are some solicitor client privileged information. So Deanna, go ahead and explain what the membrane does, if you will, and how we've expressed to the public that the membranes appear to be fouled. So I think it's fine to do that. So I think you could speak to it generally about that.
Okay, but it said, and this is, I just found the paragraph, it says, the more cleanings that were completed, the effectiveness significantly declined. So are we continuing to do cleaning? We'll have to replace them sooner?
Yeah, so over time, as the membranes age, and because we have been doing quite a number of these clean in places and chemically enhanced backwashes, as the time goes on, they are becoming less effective, which is an indication that the membranes are becoming fouled. Imagine it's a piece of material that you can only clean so well. You have a white shirt that started white, and every time it continues to get dirty, you bleach it and you bleach it and you bleach it, and it doesn't get as white over time. So the pores of that membrane are becoming plugged. And so the every time they do a cleaning, you start with a plugging, they get a little cleaned, and then they work a bit better. But now they're doing those cleanings, and after they finish the cleaning, the plugging isn't as diminished as much as it has been previously. So it's just a fact of what's happening.
Okay. We have a winter season here, so why are we dealing with frozen lines? Should we not, I didn't understand that. Why do we have frozen lines this time? Should we not have something in place for that? That's the second paragraph.
Yes, the sludge lines in the tank, if you run at a a higher level, the centrifuge doesn't run as efficiently, but if you run at a lower level, the lines are exposed and they can freeze if it if it's minus 30.
But if we know that, why don't we not do it?
We try to as much as we can, however, the centrifuge runs much more efficient at a lower level. And the plant is now, it runs automated, so over the weekend, it can come down over, like draw itself down over the weekend and expose those lines.
And we want the centrifuge to run at an effective level. The better the centrifuge works, the drier the material that comes out, the less weight that ends up going to the landfill, the less sludgy and difficult to manage it is,
Okay.
if that helps.
8.1, I have something written here, not more than 50%. Oh, yes. The final effluent did not see objective exceedances more than 50% of the time. What does this mean? That seems an awful big number to me. Or is it just I don't understand this?
So the objective exceedances, similar to the limit exceedances that I talked about under our compliance approval for the effluent, every month we have a monthly average objective to meet with the quality of our effluent, as well as a limit. And so in that table following that paragraph, we did not have any objective exceedances. That just includes the limits. So basically what I'm saying is just we did not exceed. That's something that needs to be included in the report, just some wording for the administrative environment.
So it's actually good news?
Yes.
Yes, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Told you I don't know much about this. What can it handle? I don't know. Why was there so much sludge in January and March, September, October, November, December? Is it because of the season? 10.2.
I did speak with the ORO about this, and if I do recall correctly, it was down for maintenance at a portion of that time. And so the centrifuge, they can allow a certain amount to build up and then run it and haul loads. So there was some amount of it being down. And then also later in the year, the higher levels were because some of it was because that's what was taken out of the old clarifier. So our old clarifier tank, there was some sludge material left in that tank from just accumulation over time. And in order to do an inspection on that tank, which you guys will see some information on that in the next month or so, they had to clear all of that sludge out of the tank in order to complete that inspection. So some of the loads in November and December were not necessarily from the operation of this year's of the new plant. It was taking some of the old sludge out of the bottom of the old plant. So it makes sort of the last half of the year numbers look especially high, but that was kind of additional material that went to the landfill that wasn't from regular processing.
I have one more question, and then I'll make a statement. Very short statement. Page 36 of 44. Oh dear. Anyways, it spoke. Where is it? Oh yes, there it is. It's solids and nutrients. It's page on the side. It says page 36 of 44.
We're there, yeah.
Okay, it says service population, 1,845. I didn't think we had that many. Am I missing something here? I thought we only had like 400 or 500 on this line, on the wastewater treatment plant, not 1,800 homes or businesses.
So the service population is based on the population per resident, so that's not the same as number of connections.
Okay.
There's
'cause I
a
thought
multiplying
that was-
factor to consider there.
Okay. And my last comment is very detailed, and from now on, after I go through reports like this, I will talk to you before I bring it to council. Because I know it's a lot of time, but I was just curious.
Good, thank you. Any other questions from council? I just had one. The 4 occurrences, and I can't remember the language between now that I'm having to scroll all the way back, but the four, Megan mentioned them, spoke to them. Issues of noncompliance. I think you mentioned mechanical failure, equipment repairs. Have suitable procedures been put in place to try to mitigate that in the future, and they won't be repeated, or is this something that, is a chance that we're going to see happen anyway, no matter what?
Yeah, so all of those were isolated incidents, so to speak, and what was happening at the time, maintenance-wise, as soon as that activity was over, all of the parameters did return to normal. And of course, through it being in a limit exceedance at the end of the month, that's something then that we all look at and discuss, and had to identify what the cause of them, the exceedance was, to ensure that changes are made so that it is avoided in the future, yes.
Perfect. Last question, not necessarily to Aqua, but to staff. I noticed that the report indicates we're at 80.8 this year. We've gone as high as 84.6% of average daily flow capacity. What level triggers planning to mitigate that flow, whether it's dealing with I&I or expansion? At what percentage do we trigger that kind of planning process?
My understanding, although I'm not sure that I can directly point to anything in the regs, I know 80% is generally the number that is held as being considered. But we can get back to council with a more definitive answer if there is something in regulation, or it's just sort of the standard process, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, like a business standard
Yeah.
or an industry standard, sure. I was more curious whether or not there's something outlined in the ECA that says when you hit this percentage,
Yeah, we can look
either
into that.
you have to come up with solutions to be able to address that increase. It's good. We'll put that as a deliverable. Okay, and any final questions? Okay, good. And with that, we'll call for the vote. Again, this is to receive this report for information. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Good work. Thank you. Next item is the annual drinking reports for 2025. The recommendation is the Council of Township of Whitewater Region receive the 2025 annual reports for the following drinking water systems: Beachburg Drinking Water System, Cobden Drinking Water System, and Haley Drinking Water System. A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Moore, Councillor White, and back to Superintendent Nicholson.
Thank you. So just a little bit of background to provide council on the reason for our water reports is that the annual reports are prepared for the system owner, i.e. council, and for the regulatory agency, which is the Ministry of Environment. And all these reports are to be made available to the public at their request. So there's a number of sections within the OREG 170.03 drinking water systems that state sort of the rules around of what needs to be included in the reports. And so mainly from my perspective is that the owner must ensure that a copy of the annual report system is given without charge to any person who requests a copy, and that that the owner is required to ensure that effective steps are taken to advise users of any issues. And the annual report, as similar to the wastewater report, covers a number of things like descriptions of the system, summary of test results, and samples collected, and those sorts of things. So it's a good resource, and it is always posted on our website once council has approved the resolution today to accept it. I guess I'll pass it on to Megan, so I'm not duplicating things again this time, and she can go over all of the details from each of the systems. Thanks. Nope, whatever you want.
All right, I'll start with summarizing the Beachburg Drinking Water System annual report then. So we have an annual drinking water system inspection with the Ministry of Environment. That took place back in June 2025, and our inspection rating with that was 91.7%. So taken into consideration, giving us that rating was some non-compliances related to a previous AWQI, we call it, or adverse drinking water quality incident from back in April for coagulant feed failure. So speaking again to these AWQIs or adverse situations, there were 5 in total in 2025 for the Beachburg system. One for low pressure in January during a main break event in which a boil water advisory was issued. Another for coagulant feed failure in April. We did have 1 adverse drinking water sample result, and then 2 more coagulant feed failures that occurred on the same day in July. Those were, again, related to some equipment malfunctions. And hand in hand with coagulant feed failures in July, we did have 1 non-compliance for not recording raw water flow as required under our permit to take water. And that was while the flow meter was out of commission and we were awaiting its replacement. The system was issued a provincial officer's order on October 9th in response to the coagulant feed failure event on April 3rd and 4th, 2025. 2 action items were ordered under that report, and both were addressed and considered compliant complied with, on December 11th, 2025. We have an annual external drinking water quality management system audit that occurs every year. There were no non-conformances identified in that audit. There were 4 community complaints for the Beachburg system last year. 1 for no water, which was during the main break event in January. Another to report a water leak, which was found to be another main break. And there were 2 for no water or low pressure, which had either cleared up by the time staff investigated or were identified to be an internal plumbing issue. There were 3 water main breaks, 1 in January, again, which the boil water advisory was issued for. There was another in March and 1 in April. Other distribution work in the system included curb stop repairs, service line repairs, and hydrant repair. Raw and treated water flows for the Beachburg system were consistent with previous years. And the raw water taking, we call it, how much raw water was used. That data was submitted in accordance with our permit to take water, which was the appendix at the back of the report. And all of our in-house and third-party sampling for both raw, treated, and distribution samples were consistent with previous years. And that summarizes the Beachburg report.
Pause there and we'll keep going then. Any questions from members of council on that? Beachburg. Good, I just have one. The coagulant feed failures that occurred in the spring in April, and I understand there was an order, but they weren't addressed until December, completely. So in the timeline between April and December, can you provide any insight as to what would have delayed immediately at addressing it in May or June? Why was that time needed in order to address those 2 failures?
In that instance, there was a wiring issue that a signal isolator that takes the signal from the PLC to the pump to tell it to run had failed in between, so the PLC was telling the pump to run, but the wire with the connection between A and B in this isolator had broken. So there was no feedback loop coming back to the PLC to say, yes, I am running. During that time, we had done other things trying to sort it out to get it, but now with the upgrades that are going on, that satisfied the requirement of the provincial officer's order that was done in December, that complies with that.
So I guess what I could fill in is, following the 2 noted incidents, it was discussed sort of through our construction meetings that were occurring for the Beachburg revitalization project. So there was some work that was anticipated to be going ahead anyways because of the revitalization, and it was noted that to actually implement like the fixes, the hard fixes, the pumps, the panels, the things that need to be installed, we're already underway. We're part of that process to be ordering them in, bringing them in, and planning to have them installed. And to be fair, it wasn't till several months later that the ministry brought it forward as a provincial officer's order. So it occurred in the spring. It wasn't until the fall that they highlighted it as an issue on their from their perspective. And then at that point, we were able to tell them pretty quickly that we already had plans in place for. We already had plans in place, and the ball was already rolling to make the changes that were needed permanently. Also, in the meantime, Aqua did have some developed like an SOP, like some additional checks, some in-person things to sort of tide us over until the actual physical things were changed out to become more sort of longer term solution. So I don't know if that helps fill in a little bit more of the details on how that.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I just wanted to make sure that there was a process and to understand how that process went. Perfect. So with that, we'll move on to the next one, please. Megan.
Sure. Next, I'll summarize the Cobden Drinking Water System Annual Report. Again, there was an annual Administrative Environment Drinking Water System inspection for this system as well. That was in October, and the inspection rating from that was 95.7%. Similarly to Beachburg, the considerations which gave us that inspection rating were related to a previously reported and dealt with incident, which was again a coagulant feed failure, but it was actually from September of 2024, which fell within the inspection period, so to speak. So we had 3 AWQIs, or adverse drinking water incidents, in the Cobden system. 2 were for adverse sample results and a distribution sample. These were on separate occasions. And 1 was for excess potassium permanganate in the system. And we had an external DWQMS audit for Cobden as well, with no nonconformances identified. There were 8 community complaints for Cobden in 2025, 1 for low pressure, 2 were taste and odor related, and the rest of them were for pink water during that potassium permanganate event. There were 2 water main breaks, 1 in February and 1 in April of 2025. 6 curb stops were repaired and 2 replaced, as well as 2 hydrant repairs for some work in the distribution system. Raw and treated water flows were consistent with previous years for the Cobden drinking water system as well. In-house and third-party sample results were consistent with previous years. Nothing new to note there. Some increased organics in the raw water, but that has been identified in previous years. And then lastly, along the lines of sampling, would be our microsystem sampling program. So that's for blue-green algae. So this past year in 2025, we started weekly sampling during the harmful algal bloom period, which is May to the end of October. And we typically test the raw water weekly. And we did have 2 samples come back that detected microcystin in them. So we implement, Aqua has a harmful algal bloom plan. We follow that plan, and we increased the sampling frequency as soon as we got those results, and we also sampled both raw and treated water until we had 3 consecutive sets of samples come back with no detectable microcystin in them. In both events, no other samples collected immediately after the detectable one had any microcystin in them, and we did not have any reason to suspect or notice a bloom happening. But that, I think, was a bit of a change. I don't think we've had that happen before, so we'll continue to monitor again this year when we implement our plan. And that's everything.
Questions from council? No? Sorry, I had one more. I know that public health also monitors for algae blooms. Do you share information with your testing results versus theirs?
Yes, and actually when, so from the rec side of things and the beach monitoring, we do receive notifications from the health unit, whether it's from our own beach or if they receive notifications from, sometimes the campgrounds are ones further down that notice them. And then that's sort of passed along down the line. And so if I receive any notification about being suspected algae blooms, blue-green algae, I pass it on to Aqua and confirm that they have already entered the period of time where they're doing the increased monitoring and sampling for HAB. And then the same way it goes the other way. If we, when we had the microcystin samples show up in the raw, I pass that information immediately on to the health unit from the beach perspective as well, and to the Parks Department. So it's, yes, it's part of the plan is built in to say that if there's anybody spots it and it's reported, it immediately sort of enacts the plan.
Yeah, and an additional note on that too is that we do report these incidents as a provisional report, we call it, to both the health unit and the Ministry of Environment as well. So they are aware that we did detect microcystin in Muskrat Lake or whatever our source is for the facility, and just to keep everybody in the loop and on the same page.
Yeah, that's perfect. Excellent. Okay, well, let's move on to the next one then. Thank you.
Okay, lastly is Haley Drinking Water System. We had our annual Ministry of Environment inspection there with a rating of 100%. The external DWQMS audit, again, no non-conformances were identified. We did have one AWQI in November, which was for a loss of pressure, although it was determined afterwards from some investigation that there was not a complete loss of pressure in the system, but it was reported nonetheless. There were no community complaints, and raw and treated water flows were consistent at Haley as well with previous years. And our in-house and third-party sampling results were consistent with previous years. It's a pretty stable little facility, and that's everything.
Any questions from council? Good. Any final comments? No? I just want to thank you for going through these reports. They are vitally important, not only a requirement, but just to make sure that we continue to have safe drinking water, and we're managing our wastewater to the best of our ability. Good, and for those people that might be watching with respect to wastewater in the last resolution, we have ongoing, as the CEO had mentioned, works that are protected under solicitor-client privilege. So there is other things going on with wastewater. The FAQ and the news release that we issued in September of 2024 provides as much context as we can at this point in time, and there'll be further updates when we're able to do that. Good. Awesome. We will call for a vote with respect to the current resolution on the water treatment or water systems. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Good. We are going to keep going unless council needs a break, and I don't see that, so we're going to keep going. 9.4, which is the Cobden Water Treatment Plant Health and Safety Upgrades. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region, 1, receive the Cobden Wastewater, or WTP, Wastewater Treatment Plant Assessment Memo prepared by J.L. Richards and Associates dated May 29th, 2024, and 2, authorize the Mayor and the Chief Administration Officer / Clerk to execute a transfer payment agreement with the Province of Ontario for the Cobden Water Treatment Plant Health and Safety Upgrades Project with a total eligible project cost of $5,511,250, including $4,023,212 funded by the Province of Ontario. I love the proportions between those two numbers. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by our Deputy Mayor. And with that, it's going back to our Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is a great one to bring forward. So a little bit of background. The Cobden Water Treatment Plant was originally constructed in the late 70s and underwent an expansion to add a second filter in 2007-2008. So the treatment process is provided by 2 packaged plants using conventional coagulation, sedimentation, and filtration. So just looking at those timelines, so the original filter, what we call filter number 1, was put in the late 70s. And the second filter during the expansion was installed in 2007, 2008. So filter 1 is nearing the end of its life. So in 2024, with that in mind, the township had J.L. Richards were contracted to complete an engineering study for the Cobden water treatment plant to look at a condition assessment and also a performance assessment of specifically filter 1 and more generally the building as a whole. And so J.L. Richards' study shows that lists filter 1 as being in quote unquote very poor condition and nearing its end of life expectancy. JLR also identified $950,000 in other assets within the building and such that required repair, replacement, and including administrative and engineering costs. So one thing that we had JLR look at, and it actually ties in nicely to Aqua's recent, the report that they just provided on Cobden, was assessing future system capacity, but also emerging concerns such as the harmful algal blooms, which we experienced this summer, the manganese, which is related to the pink water issues, and THMs, which has been an ongoing issue that we've identified over the last 4 years. So, following JLR's assessment, and on June 4th, when we came back to council, requesting approval for us, for staff to submit an application to the MHIP Health and Safety Water Stream funding intake, and we chose the upgrade to the Cobden water treatment plant as the project that we wanted to target because we felt it fit with the health and safety aspect of things from the THMs and the algae and a number of other things. So, and so this funding stream provides up to $175 million. To build, expand, rehabilitate all sorts of water, wastewater, stormwater projects. And of note that projects that are approved under this can have a construction date as early as June 30th of this year, and they must be completed by March 31st, 2029. So it's a fairly tight timeline. 3 years may sound like a lot, but big projects can take a long time. One notable thing is that eligible project costs such as design and engineering could be incurred as early as April 1st, 2024. And I believe the JLR Richards report was finished in May. So hopefully we'll be able to include that as part of our claim. So the township on February 13th actually received the transfer payment agreement, which verified that we have in fact been awarded the HSWS grant funding. So the total amount of the grant that was applied for was $5,511,250. And the TPA agreement that we received approved the total upset of just over $4 million. So what that means is the township has, this funding stream was a 27%, 73% split. So for the total $5 million, the province would cover up to just over $4 million, which is great. So this project, so generally this scope has been described as including filter replacement, which would be filter number 1, and the installation of process equipment to assist with the manganese removal, THMs, repair and replacement of pumps and process equipment, notably installation of SCADA. So this is, again, an older facility that doesn't have SCADA monitoring. And again, coming back to some of the issues that were experienced in Cobden and Beachburg this year, having SCADA monitoring is one of those added layers to take the risk away from having those things happen again. So adding SCADA to this treatment system is a very good thing from the health and safety side of things, as well as HVAC and building systems funding. So, in order for us to proceed with this project, the township must provide proof that through a municipal bylaw authorizing the recipient to enter into an agreement, and the bylaw must be passed and then provided alongside the TPA. So that's precisely the reason for us coming today, to ask for approval. So just noting our department work plan through 2030 lists that environmental and infrastructure as proactively addressing water quality to protect the township's water bodies, ensuring funding is available, and understanding that the sustainable levels of service for all assets were three key items included in our work plan, and this ties in with that very nicely. Additionally, as you're aware, the township undertook the Water Wastewater Task Force in 2025, and two of the recommendations included, number 3.2 was to continue to examine opportunities other than user pay, such as OCF or, in this instance, grant funding, to fund the water system, and to investigate energy efficiency initiatives. So this project, again, touches on both of those. From the funding perspective, $4 million is a significant amount of influx of money coming to the system, and it enables us to not only do this project, but to then also be able to fund other projects that might have taken longer to undertake. And notably, the energy efficiency, these plants cost a lot of money to run from hydro and gas. So anytime we do upgrades, it's a great opportunity to reduce energy usage. So getting into the financial side of things, as I mentioned, the provincial share is 73% from the cost sharing, and so $4,023,212. So in 2025, the Watson Water Wastewater Rate Study did identify the Cobden Water Treatment Plant Upgrade Project as one of the three main ones that were on the list to get done. The study originally outlined a planned expenditure of $2 million to undertake it just within house, and that was sort of the bare minimum. Really a recoding of the old filter one or a replacement, but didn't really address any of the additional things such as the THMs or the algae blooms and other things. So this funding will allow us to do a larger project and really tackle some of those issues that we really would like to see addressed. So the township's portion of the Cobden, of this project funding is expected to be fully funded by the water reserve. So we've got enough in that I know it was looking pretty close the last time Curtis and I looked at it. But so the staff's plan is as the engineering and design phases and tender phases sort of are worked through over the next 3 years, that we'll return to council to provide more detailed budgets when those items are broken down year by year. And for those amounts that will be funded through water reserves. One notable thing is that, as I mentioned in the Watson study, there were a couple other projects. So originally, the Cobden, let me get this right, the water storage tank recoding project, which is also on the list of big items to get done, was scheduled for 2027. So, and filter one was scheduled for 2028, sort of 2029. So we're essentially going to flip these projects now because of the funding. So in order for us to take advantage of the funding and get the project done on time, the filter one and the plant has to happen first. And then the tank recoding would be the next project that would happen in, I believe it's 2028. That was when it would come forward. So they've just been flipped if you compare the plan to what we're proposing here. And so that's everything. Are there any questions?
Thank you for that. And it's awesome news to hear that we're going to be able to do more and charge less. So my mover is Councillor Moore. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, exciting news that the split was this great. It's nice to know that the money that we've struggled to put away from our users is actually going to good use, and it's not going to put their fees up because of the repairs that we are required to attain. Very happy to see that the equipment for the manganese is going to be looked at and possibly upgraded. I think that's great news, and hopefully can anticipate no other colored water in the future. Hopefully. Thank you. That's all I have.
Good. Seconder was Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. No, I will just echo once again. Great news. And, yeah, great time. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council? Councillor Trim?
Yeah, something that I echo the other comments, but something that I find interesting is I know that in order to be ready, we have to be ready to apply for a grant. And because the window for application is always small. And so in order for that to happen, you have to spend money to do a study for a project that you may never get grant money for. However, and so but you need to do it. And I didn't realize that as part of the grant, we could claim the money we spent on the engineering, which is quite nice. Yeah, that's great. I didn't know that could happen, and I'm pleased that it does.
Any other final? Yeah, Councillor White?
I've learned that if you don't ask these questions, you don't know, but when I think about our roads department, and now I'm looking at this, that you're going to put the recoding off for a year. How does this affect our tank by putting it off a year?
That's definitely a good point. It's and especially I believe the tank coating. So both projects have been put back several times. If you recall, filter 1 was originally recommended to be replaced or recoated 2019. I don't know the exact date. I apologize. So yes, there is always. It's never great to push things back. Can it have impacts? Potentially. Will it definitively have impacts? I can't say for sure. That being said, it's not that far out. If we were talking 5 or 10 years, I would say I'd probably be a lot more concerned. It's putting out another 2 years, which is not a long time, if you follow me.
2 more years than what?
I'd have to confer exactly what years it said in the last time it was assessed, but I don't know, Lane would know offhand, that we are at that point, I believe that the recommendation was for it to be recoded this year or last year. So it is being delayed. Yep.
So good. So just to follow up on Councillor White's point there, the report indicates that it was scheduled to be undertaken in 27, but moved to 28, debentured in 29. So I know that's the treasurer sliding things as he can. So it's delay of 1 year. I guess what Councillor White is asking is, does that delay, what is the risk of that delay? And should council get some more information about that at a later date?
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to come back with. I'm not a paint coating engineer. I can't say definitively myself, but that's definitely a good question, and we can definitely follow up.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll add that to the list. Thank you. Any other questions? No, I like I said already, this is awesome. $4 million is $4 million, and it's going to affect the rates. When you come back with that financial plan, if the treasurer can speak to how this changes the rate study for over the 10-year period, that would be awesome to be able to recognize, if that's possible at that point in time, and if not, slide it forward to a later meeting at some point. Good? CAO?
Yeah, could I suggest with respect to the tank coating that we re-engage with the consultant who prepared the original report, and they could express to us what the impacts, if any, may be for 1 year? Can we just communicate that to council via email, or are we seeking a report together with an update on the?
No, I believe email.
That would be great. Thanks so much.
Consensus from council.
Thank you.
Good. So it'll just reflect, I guess the minutes will just reflect that council will get an update with respect to what you just said. Fair? We're getting consensus. With that, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you, staff, for all the work that you put into that grant and the many other grants were applied for. Good. Last report on our agenda today is the road improvements. Oh, this is our planner waiting patiently. Oh, okay. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region 1 authorize the conversion of the proposed private road to a public road constructed to municipal standards at the proponent's cost, and 2, direct staff to advise the proponents of the required submissions and to bring forward the necessary agreement and bylaw. Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Trim, seconded by Councillor Moore. And planner, back to you.
Can I step out for a second just to grab a physical copy on the printer because my laptop's died?
Absolutely, please.
Thank you. So through the mayor, so at the April 17th, 2025 Committee of Adjustment meeting, a rural cluster lot development was approved on the property municipally known as 1782 Westmeath Road. The development was for the creation of 7 lots, 6 residential lots, and then 1 additional lot for a private road. As part of the approval, the applicant was required to construct the road to the established private road standard of the township. The applicant, Dugan Hawkins, has come back and made a request that the township instead assume the private roadway as a public road and is taking steps to bring it to the municipal road standard for the purposes of the township assuming it. The request and application were reviewed by myself, the Chief Administrative Officer, Ivan Burton, and the Manager of Public Works, Lane Cleroux, who have provided the applicant with comments on the required improvements needed to meet the municipal road standard. The private roadway extends off of Lover's Lane. The private roadway is approximately 519 meters in length and would front on 7 lots, 1 existing and then 6 created by this cluster development. Prior to any improvements, and it ends with a cul-de-sac, prior to any improvements, the proponent will be required to submit pre- and post-construction engineer drawings and enter into a public road agreement with the township. The final agreement will govern the requirements relating to site works, including preliminary and final acceptance of liability insurance, and will be brought back to council for consideration at a later date following the submission of engineered drawings. The road is approximately 529 meters and is anticipated to have costs of approximately $1,200 per year for maintenance, including grading and calcium for dust control, and is anticipated to be able to be accommodated within the township's existing workforce. As noted, the proposal was reviewed in consultation with the CAO and Manager of Public Works for the town. Financial implications: the extension improvements of a fully maintained road will increase municipal assets while also increasing municipal expenditures related to road maintenance and servicing. The next steps would be to communicate the decision of council with the proponents following the preparation and approval of the engineered, and following approval and preparation of the engineering drawings, bringing the final public road agreement back for council for execution. At this time, we are recommending that the proposal move forward to authorize the improvement of the private road and to direct staff to prepare the necessary agreement to be brought back to council. Thank you.
Thank you, planner. We'll move to our mover first, Councillor Trim.
Yes, I think this is very good application. This half kilometer road, it leads onto a gravel road, and it's adjacent to the municipal work garage, and so it's going to be quite handy for us to maintain if it's built, and I'm sure it will be, according to the standards that we require, this is excellent for 6 more lots. So I'm certainly in favor of this, and this is our first rural cluster project, and I'm hoping that we can see more of these in the municipality, and this is the one that we will use as an example. So, yes, quite excited about this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. And Councillor Moore, you're a seconder?
Yeah, I do. I have 2 questions. When they bring this up to maintenance standard, then we take it over, will it be left gravel, or will we be hard surfacing? Be gravel?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, it will be similar to Zack Road, which leads to the La Pointe subdivision. Now, that is different because it is a plan of subdivision, but it would be similar to that in that respect. This is not a plan of subdivision, something different, but the road will be the same, to the same standard. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, understand?
Just to be clear from the planner, though, it is gravel.
My understanding is that it would be, but I believe, or CAO Burton's nodding, so I believe in their discussions as well, it will be gravel.
Excellent. Okay, good. Second question?
My second question is, what happens to the parcel in green? Is that retained by the owner? Or is that swampland? Is it not large enough for another building lot, et cetera?
I'm not as familiar with the cluster lot development, because I wasn't there for, I believe it's retained by the owner. As for why it was undeveloped, I might pass that on to CAO Burton if he has any more information.
Yeah, the intent is to develop it with another single-family home. So the 6 in red would be all singles together with the 1 green lot as well.
Okay, and then in keeping with that, then that dotted line, is it actually a natural waterway?
Well, there's 2 dotted lines. One is a natural waterway that goes between the cemetery and the municipal garage. There's
Yes.
quite a ravine there. The other dotted line is a minimum buffer setback requirement for the rural cluster lots. There's a buffer of 100 meters from the nearest public road. That dotted line is just showing what a 100-meter setback is and showing that there's sufficient space on the green property together with lot 1 to develop a home.
Okay, understand. Thank you.
Thanks.
Excellent. Good questions. Any other questions from members of council? Okay, I see none. My comment is that this is perfect. We never want to accept more assets, as we talked about already today. But in this case, we're accepting 0.5 kilometers of a highway that directly supports 7 different homes. So the correlation is there. The growth, this is needed as part of that growth. Good. With that, we will call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's unanimous. Thank you. Good. Next item on the agenda, thank you, planner. Next item on the agenda is number 10, which is notices of motion. Is there any member of council wish to make some notice of a future motion? Good. I see none. That moves us into correspondence. We have no correspondence that requires direction. 2 information items. The first one is the local organization annual reports. This is the, again, they're being brought forward as the manager of community services receives them. This one is from the Cobden Rec Association. And the second one is the Renfrew County District Health Units, the medical officer health report, the monthly report to the board. Is there any questions or comments from members of council on either one of these items? Good. Manager of Community Services, do you have anything to say on the, excellent, good. With that, we'll move on to item number 12, which is announcements. Deputy Mayor, you're up first.
I'll leave it to all of these because I know there's probably a lot coming, so.
Councillor White.
There we go. Thank you, Mayor.
I'll leave Westmeath to Joey, well, actually, there's one in Westmeath I want to talk about, but I'm hoping the mayor can help fill me in. There's a virtual, or maybe you can, the Ottawa River Power?
No.
Okay, there's a virtual session for the OPG on the Ottawa River.
Freshette.
Okay. It's, oh no, not the virtual one. I want to talk about the one in Westmeath though.
Yeah, the one in Westmeath is on
Thursday night.
Okay, I was looking at the wrong one. Okay, yeah, so I saw that one. And then, I guess that's all I have. Oh, no, there's a soup day at Trinity United Church in Foresters Falls from 11:30 to 1 on Friday, the 13th. That's all I have.
Excellent. Councillor Moore, please.
I have a meeting tomorrow, I think it's still on, and it has to do with John Street and Cobden Road, about traffic, et cetera.
Yeah, CAO's nodding.
Hopefully that's still a go, okay? And then next Wednesday, I have Otter River Power, and that's it for me.
Excellent. And Councillor Trim.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Am I correct that the meeting tomorrow evening in Westmeath, OPG, that's on the calendar, or?
It is. You had to register.
Oh,
You
okay.
have to register, but it's 6:30 at the WDRA Hall in Westmeath tomorrow
Right,
night.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Saturday, of course, is the Winter Carnival in Westmeath. Hockey, all kinds of different activities for children, people of all ages. The library, our library is going to have, up in the hall, they're going to be there showcasing what they do, and books and information all about the library. And our new library member will be there then too, Sarah Lott.
Oh, new chairman.
I'm sorry, but she is a fairly new member also.
Yeah, she's coming because of the chair.
Okay, that's all I have.
Awesome. I'm going to go to our manager of community services. Is there anything you wanted to add that maybe we're not tracking?
I may have a bit more. So just so everybody's aware, if you're talking to anybody in the community and they're planning an event in the month of August, between the 1st and the 16th of August, we're partnering with the Killaloe, Haggerty, Richards, Deep River, Laurentian Valley, North Algona, Wilberforce, and the Pound of Petawawa for the Water and Dirt Festival. There's some combined advertising that is going on, and if you're programming something in that 2-week period, the 1st to the 16th of August, you'll get in on that combined advertising. Borka's doing their Dirty 30 on August 15th, so it's on that list, but that's future thinking. The seniors has 2 St. Patrick's Day events on the 10th and on the 17th. There's also a fire prevention partnership in March with our fire department, who's doing a presentation, as well as CPR and first aid first lessons. There's a bus trip, one going to Nordic Spa and another one going to the Tulip Festival. That'll be in May, but that's future. The St. Andrew's United Church has their soup and sandwich on the 27th, and the Riverview Seniors has a soup and sandwich on the 18th, as well as their Singo Bingo at the end of the month. What else do I have? St. Patrick's Day breakfast. The fire department's going to be pretty busy in the next little bit. The Beachburg firefighters are doing a breakfast on the 21st. The Roy Church Memorial is in May, and they're also doing a Yuck Yucks comedy show in May. Again, future. Westmeath just sent me an email, and they're doing, they have a darts night, and they have a jazz glam for a mom prom coming up in May. That sounds fun. And they're also looking for nominations for volunteers. In addition to that, in Cobden, the school in April is doing a Beauty and the Beast presentation, and it sounds like they've just released a second list of tickets that are available, so they're selling out quickly. And it's April 8th. And then March 21st is the Family Ham Bingo in Beachburg. And then just notes on summer sports, Cobden Minor Ball is looking for interest in a T-ball group for 2 and 3-year-olds. And Beachburg Rec says their softball, and I'm going to assume soccer is registration's opening soon, so just to follow their pages. And then the CRC obviously has our early on programs operating regularly in Westmeath, Cobden, and Beachburg, so they're here weekly.
You can't say we're a sleepy community.
I did that all in one voice.
Thank you for that. And although I can't take notes as fast as you're delivering, I know the information's out there, and it's just reassuring to know just how active the community is and how important it is for these volunteer organizations who do this to support our communities. But thank you for keeping a hand in it. Good. Deputy Mayor, you had something else?
Thank you. Councillor Moore triggered me for something. I will be attending the Ottawa River Energy Solutions Board meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Excellent. And I will be going to that OPG Frechette meeting on Thursday night, tomorrow night in Westmeath. In case, if you were interested and you're unable to attend, just give me a shout and I can fill you in. Good. With that, next is our bylaws. So listed on our agenda here is 1, 2, 3, 4 bylaws. So the recommendation is that be it resolved that the bylaws listed on the March 4th agenda be taken as read and passed. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor White. Any final opportunity here for council if they have any questions or comments with respect to any of these items that are listed on the agenda? I see none. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you. Closed session. We will now have a closed session on 2 items. Council of Township Whitewater Region. Oh, actually, do I have to extend? Okay, so a mover to, how much time do you need for a closed session? So I'm asking for a motion to extend to 4:30. So moved by Councillor Trim, second by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? It's carried unanimously. With that, the recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region move into closed session at 4 p.m. as permitted in Section 239 2K of the Municipal Act, with the CAO, Director of Corporate Services, Treasurer, and Director of Community Services remaining in the room to discuss a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, with the 2 discussion points listed here on the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Moore. All those in favor? Unanimous. We are in closed. Thank you.